What's up, everybody, and welcome inside another episode of Chillin With Chillot right here on the NC Sports Network. My name is TJ Chillot, play-by-play broadcaster. In my many years of traveling the country, working in different leagues all across the United States, I've come across some awesome people who have even better stories. And today, I am so honored to have my good friend and head coach of the Ogden Mustangs in the USPHL, Kenny Orlando. Kenny, thanks, man, for joining me. It's been a long time. What, 2-3 years now?
Yeah, it's been a little while. That's for sure. I miss you.
Yeah, I miss you too. We hung out a lot. I mean, we go back to Austin, Minnesota. We've already talked to Keegan Asmunson, but you were the other half of that assistant coaching duo there in Austin, Minnesota. And the three of us, we were pretty much inseparable, along with your now fiance, Amanda. Congratulations. Just a couple weeks old, huh?
Yeah. It's just a little over a week old at this point. So it's exciting for you and everyone else that knows me pretty well. I think I've gotten my chops busted quite a bit for how long I waited, but us hockey guys, there's always a lot going on in our lives at all times. So and not to mention, I mean, she's an unbelievable girl. She's very patient with me, as you know. And you guys witnessed firsthand, and she's been through the trenches with me with this hockey stuff. So I love and adore her. I'm very lucky.
Well, and I think that right there is the reason. I mean, she's followed you from Pennsylvania to Minnesota out to Utah, and I mean, a lot of times, a bunch of those moves, lesser women would be like, nah, this ain't for me. See ya, I'm out. But you definitely got a lucky one there, and we're really happy for you. Obviously, Amanda was a big piece of our friendship and the three of us, and she'd go away and I'd have to take care of you. I was the surrogate girlfriend because you didn't know how to cook and all that stuff. But no, I can't wait for you guys. I'm so excited, and it is about time. Keegan and I, when we were talking actually off mic, last time when I had him on a couple weeks ago, we did make a little side bet to see who was going to get engaged first. Would it be you after dating Amanda for how many years now, or me?
7.
Oh my God, making her wait. She sweated that out, didn't she?
But, yeah, she did. I think proposing actually threw her off because she was like, I don't even know if this is ever coming.
Was that your plan?
It worked out in my favor.
Wait so long.
Yeah, that all of a sudden I'm kind of in control of the situation to make it 100% a surprise. That's kind of what I was able to do, and it worked out well. It was a really good experience, but obviously, yeah, that was she was quite the trooper with that weight.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations again, and let's talk a little bit about who you are and how you've gotten out to Utah and the different stages. Obviously, I know these stories. We've talked about it a lot, but that's kind of the core of this podcast, is really talking about experiences and stories and getting to, who everybody is in this business, whether they're organists like Greasy Keys, who I had on last week, or directors of broadcasting or equipment managers, whoever it might be. So how did you get started? Obviously, I know you're from a big hockey family. Let's talk a little bit about it and what led you on your path to coaching.
Well, I think, I'll kind of just put the statement out there. I think that this job, my involvement in hockey right now with where I'm at is, kind of meant to be. It's a long time coming. I've been involved with hockey, like you said, my entire life. More or less, I don't know anything else. I've dedicated my entire life to this. So, obviously for your youth years, you're focusing on the dream and passion of becoming a professional hockey player. And, it looked like in some capacity I was going to be able to, extend and live that dream out. I don't know where or when, but it looked like it would have, I was on the right path, through my youth and junior career, and then getting to play some Division III college. But, very quickly, my personal path got cut short. Just with injury, I ended up with a concussion early on in that freshman year of college hockey, which, right away changed my route of where I was going, what I was doing. And if I wanted to stay involved with the game, it was not going to be playing anymore, so you kind of look at how, everyone's path's different in the game, whether you're a player, a coach, a broadcaster, whatever it may be. You can kind of appreciate each person's path. And for me, I knew eventually I would be involved in the coaching side just because I love the game too much, and I feel like I have a good brain for it. But, I didn't think it was going to be that soon. You look kind of like with my background a little bit. I mean, I grow up I'm very passionate about the game. That was kind of instilled in me from my father at a really young age. I got on the ice probably, before 3 years old. I was on the ice and he was scooting me around, and I was drinking the Kool-Aid by 3 or 4 years old. I'm out there playing in-house hockey with kids that are 6, 7, 8 years old, and I'm a 4 or 5 year old, and I'm, chasing them down. And I think that kind of just, that relentless pursuit was something that was contagious at an early age. I was able to kind of live that out as long as I could until injury stopped it. So we were very fortunate, as far as when I grew up, my father actually ended up building a rink. It's Hatfield Ice. It's in Colmar, Pennsylvania. It's a 3-sheet facility now. Back 20 plus years ago, that was a 2-sheet facility when it first went up from the ground up. And he did a lot of that with his hands, and I was able to be there and chop up the construction dirt with my mini hockey stick, and kind of just get in his way and just ask him when the ice is going to be ready. And I was able to then live those 8 to 10 years of youth hockey under his realm, as far as coaching and under his roof. So it worked out really well for me. I was definitely a rink rat. Didn't know anything else, like I said, about the game or about life at that point when I was young, except the game, and I was able to be there every day. And, it kind of pushed me into juniors pretty early, and chase this thing as far as I could. And, just obviously with injuries, you ended up a little short, but I was able to kind of put my love and passion for this game back into the coaching side right away.
When you got into, coaching, was that a sudden moment for you? Was that a sudden decision, like, okay, the playing career is over, I've got to go into coaching? Or was there a little bit of a struggle, like an internal struggle, akin to someone, losing a job and having to start a new career? Like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Was it a long, stretched out process for you? Or when that day came, were you just like, okay, this is it, I'm going right into coaching?
Well, that's a really good question, and people usually don't ask that type of question.
That's why you're on the show.
Right, exactly. I figured I would get that question from you because you're very detailed. But yes, that the answer is that I struggled. People that knew me personally at that time could see it. I was wearing it on my sleeve. I didn't feel right. I had no recollection of what I was doing or who I was at any point in time early on in those early stages of the injury with my concussion coming, in that freshman year of college. So, I think there was so many frustrations with it, between my lifelong dream of playing professional or, obviously having success at the college level, but then playing professional at some point, getting that yanked away from me. And I kind of felt at one point in time, I kind of felt like worthless, because that's what you focused your whole life on, for one task or one goal. And, you kind of measure or base yourself off of that task or how far you got to it. And I think I was, very hard on myself with that, but it was something that was kind of, looking back on it now, is out of your control. I can't control how my brain bounced off my head. I can't control my symptoms. I can't control how I felt, as far as, living everyday life and with the repercussions that came with, getting out of bed and going somewhere that was too crowded or too many people or too many lights. I couldn't control any of that other than trying to exercise therapies. So, for me, I think it was definitely a grueling process of understanding that I can't change this. All I can do is kind of look at what's next. And that's what, my freshman year of college, I had to sit out the second half of the season, or I would say 2/3 of it actually, just waiting and hoping that this thing would go away. And it never did. Which that summer after freshman year, I was like, you know what, I got to make an action here. I want to stay involved. I don't want to be just sitting in the stands watching because I'm hurt. I need to go home, so I transferred schools from Canton University, a SUNY school up there in New York. It was a great school, especially for hockey. It was awesome. But, I had to let that go because you get one brain and you gotta try to figure out a way to fix it and be able to have something that can operate for the rest of your life, not just, put your brain at risk every single day when it was already weakened and damaged. To put myself back out there, it wasn't right at that time. So I hustled home that summer. I transferred to Temple University, and that was a very unique situation. I think you're talking, we talk about like path and everyone's different experiences in this game. I think I could probably have one that many people didn't in that experience with Temple, because I'm a sophomore in college and I'm no longer allowed to play now with injury. I tried to get on the ice with that team at home in the beginning of the season, just to get on the ice to see if my brain can handle it. And it couldn't. So, I stepped away from that, and right away I'm like, you know what, if I want to be involved with this team and I can only do it, with my health permitting, the only option I have is coaching. So I'm a sophomore in college, and I'm living college up to the best I can and making good buddies, and, going out to a party or whatever it may be and going to class and seeing all the boys. And it's a very weird situation because I'm on the coaching staff, at a young age like that. So like to be able to try to create separation and a boundary
Sure.
was extremely tough. The guys respected me because they saw, how much I actually care about the game and the smarts that I have for it. I felt like, okay, there's a lot of value there, and I can nurse that odd relationship of being buddies with the guys, but still being able to give them what they need as far as being a hockey player. So it took probably half a season there in that first year with Temple when I was an assistant. And, there were a lot of good people involved in that organization that were kind of able to help segue that. But, I think halfway, 3/4 way through the season, I became a main voice, and that the guys listened even more than I think anyone ever thought they would, because they were so connected to me, because they felt like they were my friend at that time. And they were, and that, so they trusted my hockey knowledge, but they were also my friends. So it was an interesting dynamic, to say the least. I ended up doing that for 2 years, so I was a sophomore and a junior in college,
While
helping
also
run
being a coach.
that Temple. Yeah, and being a coach at the same time. You're worrying about all your credits. You're worrying about your social side, having friends. You're worrying about trying
Graduating.
graduating and making sure that you have something maybe lined up, or an internship coming or something. I'm also trying to nurse all my, symptoms that I still have a year or two later out of the concussion, and they were still serious. So, there was just so much on my plate at that time, but I do think that really helped segue me into my next opportunity, which ended up making it look like this is going to be my career. When you look at, I was able to do that for 2 years, and then, go to a rival school down the road where they fight with each other. Every single season they're battling Villanova and Temple, and, I'm able to take a head position there. Great people again in that organization and in the university there. And they kind of let me take that thing on and do what I wanted with it. No one got in the way, as far as, putting limitations on me or, needing permits for certain things, in that sense, as far as needing to ask for permission and everything. I didn't have any of that. I was able to kind of do it. And
no issue with your age or anything like that?
No. And that was the unique part is, at that point I'm a senior in high school, or a senior in college. I'm sorry. And, a senior in high school would be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, a senior in college. So, I'm finishing up my classes and my, sports internship and sports management stuff over at Temple, and I'm coaching the Villanova team. So now I'm like, yeah, Temple players, all my friends, I'm like, yeah, you guys should go to that extra party this week, because I'm thinking all I'm thinking about in the back of my head is like, all right, how, what advantage can we get, on these kids? So it was just funny how the dynamic worked. Another interesting part of that was, with Villanova, they actually play out of my family's rink, Hatfield Ice.
Okay.
So, being a senior in college, and being to work, at the rink, helping, as far as, helping my cousin, be one of the hockey directors there at the rink, and then teach private lessons, and then also be at the rink coaching Villanova. It just worked out really nice. If I wasn't in class, I was at Hatfield at all times, because of whether it was work or whether it was coaching or private instruction, I was there the entire time.
You're a true rink rat, I mean, in every sense of the word. And I kind of want to dive back in, because this kind of brings up a little bit of a hot topic in the world of sports these days. Obviously, your playing career was ended due to a head injury, and we talk about CTE in the NFL, and even in different leagues in hockey, they're banning hockey. Some of the major juniors in Canada banning fighting. Excuse me, not banning hockey, but they're banning fighting in the game of hockey. We know the NCAA bans fighting as well. Where do you kind of stand as a head coach who's bringing up these young kids? You know the importance of a physical game, but also you kind of suffer the effects of a very physical game yourself. How do you kind of balance your thoughts and your feelings and how you're bringing up these younger kids?
So that's again, you're asking good questions. I think there's two sides to that. For me, like, um, you know, being a coach, you want to make sure that you're always giving the guys a proper guidance, and I think some of that's subjective, right? I mean, it's a little bit opinion based on how or why you would teach the boys a certain thing or not teach them a certain thing. But I think ultimately with that, that's health and safety, right? So for us, and for me being able to say that I went through that, my career was affected from it, my life has been affected from it. I still have symptoms to this day. They're way less, but I still have symptoms to this day. We're 10 years later at this point. So for me, if something like that comes up, in the position that I'm in now, I fully support our training staff and our players as far as the honest approach of, okay, of course, as a coach, I'm ready for the kid to get back in the lineup or whatever it may be. I'm eager and ambitious for that, but I would not rush the process. I won't force the process, and I won't hide or manipulate the process to help, whether it's my or the team's benefit. I would never do it. The health is more important. And you see how long people they struggle with symptoms and their life alters. Sometimes in good, but mostly negative. As far as fighting symptoms and how life paths can change. I would never want to put someone in that position, just knowing what I went through. So,
Right.
I'm a hungry coach. We want to win. We want to be successful. And we want everyone to be healthy along the way. So you kind of teeter with that line. But to kind of go back to your other comment as far as like the CTE and looking at all the professional sports, especially football, like, that's nasty. It's nasty stuff. And, you in the olden days, you used to just get your bell rung, right? Quote unquote. And
Mm-hmm.
and, in some ways I admire those people because they were able to kind of just brush it off. But, at the same time, there may be a quality of life that they were missing out on that they maybe even didn't know about. And I'm not here to make that decision for anyone, but, I think that I could see why, I certainly don't have these feelings, but I could see why someone, might struggle moving forward in their life in any capacity. And you've seen players, professional players commit suicide and hurt themselves or hurt someone else. And not justifying it by any means, but, I think it affects everyone differently. And it's really tough to, kind of force someone back or force or expect someone to, just say that they're good or to pass a test, because you see how serious these things can be and how they can affect people's lives, every one of them very differently.
Yeah, and we're seeing it. I mean, the game of hockey, the sport of football, it's all changing. Like as we go through, I mean, every now and then, right now, a lot of training camps are going on for both hockey and football. But in the NFL, you see the guys wearing the padded like helmet covers, so it's not hard on hard; it's something soft on soft. And obviously, things are changing, and people are starting, I think, to recognize and to see that. Because you brought up a great point earlier. You only get one brain, right? So you even said just now. If something happens, you don't even know the quality of life that you're missing out on because you only get one life. You only go through this one time. So you don't know it could be any different. And that's kind of sad when there's people out there knowing that things could be better. So it's good to have advocates like you out there, kind of speaking to this and bringing up these kids the right way and teaching that protection. Because like you said, it's defensive, right? It's how to take a hit just as much as it is how to dole out that big hit.
Yep.
But I just
Yep.
wanted to bring that up. It was interesting, an interesting thing to think about. But continuing on with your career, you leave Villanova, and that's where our paths cross. Even though we're both Eastern Pennsylvania guys, and I've played games at Hatfield. I played one game at Hatfield. It was actually a practice. I take that back. I had one practice at Hatfield, and I played a lot down the road at Inline 309. But our paths didn't cross until Austin, Minnesota, which was your first taste of juniors as a coach after having played and being in the junior system before. Let's talk about that experience a little bit. What was your initial shock or initial whoa? This is a lot different than the college game that I just came from when you got to Austin, Minnesota.
I think for me anyway, I mean, like, I still am. I'm probably never going to change in the sense of my ambition for the game and love for the game. So I wasn't, very shocked in any of the workload, but I think more of the emphasis on recruiting and the emphasis on scouting. I think going to the North American League, that was probably what opened my eyes the most. There wasn't anything that was like, man, I can't handle this, or I can't, the hard work will persevere. We're going to get where we need to get to. But at the same time, it was more of like there was so much that the hyper focus on, recruiting, scouting, understanding these players, where they're coming from, and who's actually going to be that right puzzle piece type of fit, for a certain lineup, a certain type of coaching style, based off of players that may be graduating or moving on or getting a chance at a higher level. Like, the stress on that, I think, was the biggest eye opener for me going into the juniors. But rightfully so, because every level afterwards, between USPHL Premier and now our new level here with the NCDC, everything has been based off of recruiting as well. So I mean, it makes sense. It was just I didn't have as much of that with Villanova and Temple. With Temple especially, there was a lot of guys, you had options on players, and you were able to have those recruiting conversations. But I think that the quality of player and the talent pool, just there's so many players out there for you to, that are accessible to you, that in juniors, it's just a whole nother animal. There's so many more people and so many more things to explore. And I think that was what opened my eyes the most to how big of a beast junior hockey is, but I obviously fell in love with it right away. It was awesome.
It's one of those things where, and I learned this too when I got into Austin. That was the first level that I had worked at, where the next level seemed to be more paramount than where you were at now, both in the coaching staff and the scouting and the players. Like that entire, the North American Hockey League, it's the same with the NCDC, the USHL. No matter what it is in junior hockey, they're all trying to push you for bigger and better things that are upcoming, whether that's the NCAA, whether you're getting drafted, whatever it is. Everybody has that. It's all about the next thing. We're going to succeed here. The coaching staffs that stick around for 5, 6, 7 years and cycle through players as they age out and stuff. Yeah, they want to win. They want to do as good as they possibly can, but at the end of the day, this is all for the betterment of these players, to get them to be the best they can possibly be, to commit to those NCAA Division I schools, to commit to Division III schools, to get drafted, get looked at by these higher leagues, and get in the NHL. And that was something that I really noticed hard. I mean, everything was all about what can we do to set these kids up. And you leave Austin after 1 year, you go out to Ogden. This is what, now your fourth year in Ogden.
It's fourth coming up.
And you've improved that team every single step of the way. I was looking at the website today. You guys finished 10th in the division, or in the league your first time, 9th in the second year, 7th last year. What's been your key to success out there now that you're running your own program? What are some of those changes you've made that you learned from Austin, that you learned from Temple, Villanova? Are you starting to come into your own as a coach?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of this, is that I'm coming in as far as being able to, feel comfortable with myself and my coaching style, and what I want to get across to the boys. And I think they respond to it really well. We're just short of, with playoffs and preseason and all that stuff, we're definitely over 100 wins, but as far as regular season games go, we're probably just a couple short of 100 in 3 seasons. And with our division being super competitive, it's relentless as far as the recruiting goes. Everyone here cares about it. They want to be the best. And, this was a program that I stepped into that was one of the best as far as being in the Western states. Before we took the step into when I got here, we stepped into USPHL Premier, and it made it a little bit more competitive all around as far as having, authentic one goal type competition every night. But at the same time, regardless, Ogden was a powerhouse in the Western states, so you're coming in expecting to hold that standard up for your fan base and for the players and for people that have been around supporting it. I think the biggest thing for me is just over these years, I've been able to come into my own, like you said, and build something that I'm very confident in, and, relationships with schools for our players that, we're able to get them opportunities at the next level, whether that is, university or professional overseas, or excuse me, or higher level juniors, or whatever it may be. Like, there's relationships that we were able to build over these years here, and no, I'm really happy with it, really proud of it. And I think it's done nothing but continue in the right direction, and I think there's certain little victories too. If we were to look internally in the organization here, like we have a lot of great people. I'm really lucky to have some of the people here that we do and the ownership that we do, because, they dump endless time and resources and money into this. But like you look at like a little victory off the ice, like growth in a fan base is an obvious one, but like growth in billet families,
Mm-hmm.
like that's a huge one, where you show these people are just so willing to be a part of this now after the years that, they see that we're willing to work with them and they're willing to work with us, and we want our players molded the right way. And, there's just there's a lot of good people right now invested in this thing, and I think that helps. It doesn't just help myself. It's not about that. It doesn't just help the owners, Sean and Kimberly. It helps everyone. Like it makes this thing the best that it can be. And I'm so proud to be a part of it, and you look on the ice, and I could probably tag it back to when I was there in Austin. Coach Steve Howard, so many great things to say about him on how he, helped assist me in the process of developing as a junior coach. He held me accountable for a lot of things, and I think that ended up making me a lot better in certain areas of the game. And I think the one area is the power play, right? I mean, Steve let me, kind of take that thing on my own. Sure, obviously he had final say, and if something needed to be adjusted, it would. But at the end of the day, that was my baby, and that's my baby now. Still, I love scoring goals probably maybe more than Alex Ovechkin loves scoring goals, and I don't even get to play. And you see how hard he celebrates after he scores his 10 skillionth goal. He still celebrates the same that he did when he scored his first one. So, for me, like that's a big part of this that, I would attribute back to Steve, the accountability that he had, but also the trust, though. He saw that there was some offensive ability in my mindset, and being able to kind of take that thing and, move the right direction. We've built what would be, I would say, one of the most lethal power plays around here in the last couple of years. Every single season, we've been number one in the division, and I would have to go back on the numbers and as far as the country goes with the 70 teams, but I think it was top 5 or 6 in all 3 years.
Wow.
This last season that just ended, we were number one in both power play percentage in the whole country, but we were also number one in power play goals for, and we set a USPHL single season goal record that will, probably not be broken for a very long time.
Oh my God.
So, you look at like where we came from, and that's not all me, right? That's the players working their butt off with the information that we're giving them, and being able to have their creativity kind of dive into my systematic behind it. So, you look at that, and that's something that I can attribute all the way back to Steve. We had number one power play there in Austin that year when I was there with you guys, and obviously he was continuously hard on me, and it helped those kids. And it helps their stats, it helps the team, it helps everyone, and then bringing that same passion and, I would say accountability and expectation of success to the power play in Ogden. It's been a thing of beauty. We spend so much time on that, studying it, looking at lanes, looking at different looks and hands and everything else. And, just really honored to be a part of that and share, that trophy, that record that we got this year. With those, 5 to 10 kids that we worked in particular with. It was really cool moment.
Was that something, and I want to get back to the Steve Howard and the Austin years here in a second, but was that something that you had a lot of experience with coming into Austin, the power play? Were you doing a lot of that with Villanova and Temple, or was this really your first time that you got the opportunity to roll your sleeves up and get dirty?
I would say that it was not my first time. Like with Temple and Villanova, we focused on that stuff a lot, and it depends on your personnel, right? On what type of look you would give, or how your boys' brains work. On you can kind of figure your own players out and see the looks that they're looking at and see the looks that they're not looking at, and I think you can kind of base you can't force someone to think a certain way, but you can certainly put them in an area to succeed. So, you gotta understand your boys, and you gotta understand the way that they see the game. And I think that helps. It ultimately, it trumps everything else in the sense that if what your boys are going to be thinking at a certain time on that 5-on-4 look, you're going to be able to put them in a good spot where it's going to be successful. And I think that's where I started to understand that was with Temple and Villanova. But then being put in that pressure situation that, games relied on an Austin Bruins power play, it'd be a win or a loss on a 1-goal game because of something like that. I think that's where it really heightened my expectation for success, was at that point with Steve. And, it changes games. You watch the NHL, and how many times is a 1-goal game? You watch high level junior hockey with where we're at, with where Austin's at, like, it changes the game, so you want to be a part of that and be able to change it the right way and change it in your favor, and if you can do that, a lot of games 5-on-5 are being, played pretty even within a goal, so you need something to create some separation.
It's funny that, you bring up Steve and all that stuff. The first time I heard that you were coming to the team, I was already there for a full year. It was going into my second year, and I'll never forget. He walks down the hallway into the front office where myself and Mike Cooper, the former owner of the team, was sitting in the office, and Steve just bursts in the door. He's like, all right, so we got our new assistant coach. And we already talked about, at this point, you were signed on before Keegan. I knew Keegan vaguely from his time in the SPHL when he knocked us out of the playoffs. But I was like, okay, so who's this guy? And he pulls up his phone and he's like, check this out. And he pulls up your YouTube clips. And it's just these nasty dangles and this highlight reel of just your sick hands from you being a player. He's like, this is our new offensive guy. And I'm just like, oh, this is going to be great. And I always will remember the first time that I heard about Kenny Orlando. The first two things that went through my head was, number one, that is a great porn star name. And
Absolutely.
Number two, he's got some silky mitts. It was really, he was so stoked about that. And I'm sure that you got the opportunity to show the guys on the ice as well. But when you think back, outside of the hockey world to that year in Austin, do you remember that? It was the COVID year. It was the year that was cut short. And I remember, actually, I'm going to take this in a totally different direction. Do you remember the night the world shut down? Do you remember what we were doing?
Were we having a party in my apartment?
We were having a party at your apartment. It was me, you, Keegan, and Amanda. We were playing that dice game where you would throw the dice on the table and you have to get it past each other. I'll never forget that, because the next day, that was St. Patrick's Day, which I think Amanda's birthday is around there, isn't it? Was it her birthday? Were we throwing a birthday party?
Yeah, March 17th.
Yeah. So we were at her place, and the next day I had a 105 fever practically. I was so sick. I swore to the heavens I have COVID, and it was at that point in time where you had to meet these 5 criteria to get a test, because the tests were hard to come by. So you had to have certain symptoms and all this other stuff. And one of the questions they asked me was, had you been out of the country? And I had not. But Amanda just got back from Australia or New Zealand or something like that. And I'm like, no, but I just spent the last night I was with 4 hours with my friend and his girlfriend in their apartment and they're like, no. And I was so sick.
Same cup.
We probably were.
Yeah.
I mean, because we found out, later on that week that there wasn't going to be any games that weekend. And that was pretty much the last big hang that we had, because the season just kind of went, kerplunk, and you ended up going off to Ogden, and Keegan decided to go a different route with his career, and I stuck around for a while. But man, what do you remember about that just, if not that night, but just that year outside of the rink and some of the things that went on?
Well, I remember when that first happened. I mean, obviously we were having a great time, just the 4 of us, just like we always do. I think there was so many times where we would go away from the rink and we needed a stress relief in some sense, right? Whether it was, players, game result, what it could have been for you with, broadcast, social media, it could have been anything, but, we just wanted to get away and separate a little bit. I think, that's why we had so much fun together, especially with Keegan and Amanda too. Anywhere we went, I knew we were having a great time. Didn't matter if we were drinking water, if we were drinking beer, if we were going out in the morning, if we were going out at night. It didn't matter. I just knew if we were all hanging out together, it's going to be amazing. And I think that was it was cut so short after that night. We had such a great time, and then the next thing then literally the next day or two, I'm walking to the rink wearing a dish towel over my face and rubber mask or rubber gloves on my hands so I don't touch the doorknob that someone else touched. I mean,
That's right.
I, I just feel like an idiot.
I know.
But
I
yeah,
remember
but
it.
like, going through that, like those couple weeks there, like when it was unknown, like, rightfully so, everyone was scared, and that was a really tough time. Like we're all going there, like we're trying to continue to do our jobs, but we don't know if we just touch the door that's going to get us sick, or if we breathe the air that someone else just breathed 5 minutes ago that's lurking in the hallway. Like you just have no idea. You
Yep.
had no idea what to expect. You're just going around like in complete panic. Everyone was so high strung. But if you reflecting on the year as a whole, I mean, outside of that, little mishap in March, like I think it was that was such a fun year, and I think for being in an area, not saying anything poor about Austin, Minnesota, other than it's small and there's not a lot of people.
It's
Right.
isolated.
So, right. It's super isolated where if that's not your style, you're going to have a tough time having fun there for an extended period. And I think we did the best we could socially, throughout that season to continue to have a good time and keep smile on our face and keep life going, outside of hockey and outside of being in such an isolated area. It
Yep.
was crazy. It was so small and just it has to be your cup of tea to live somewhere like that, and obviously hockey takes you to those places often. Hockey takes, hockey will do that to players, coaches, anyone, broadcasters, as like it can take you to some crazy spots throughout this world, and I think that was one for me where I was like, we're gonna have to find a way to make our own fun here.
Yeah, for
That's
real.
gonna have to be, and for you and Keegan, like and Steve, we found a way to do that. It was a really fun group.
There was select people that really helped us with that. When you talk about Jeremy Olson and Hootenolies and the bars and the different
Yeah,
things. I will say that about the Midwesterners. They love their bars, and they're some of the most fun bars that you can
yeah,
stumble into. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I remember going, obviously, from eastern Pennsylvania in the Lehigh Valley. There's a population of about 500,000 in that area. I went out to just outside of Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis is 1.2 million, I think, at this point. And then I go to Austin, Minnesota, population of 25,000. It was
yeah,
a big, it
max.
was a big culture shock. And then when you talk about COVID on top of it, when stuff was closed, but people start to get to know you. And I'll never forget when I had applied for the Charlotte Checkers job and I was waiting to hear back. I had a second interview. There was a week before I actually heard that I got the job and then I'd be moving to Charlotte. There was a week there where I was at this one particular bar, Hootenolies, every single day. And because I didn't want to sit at home alone with my thoughts, right? Like I didn't want to be thinking about the negative. What if I don't get this? What if I don't get this? Like I didn't want to just sit there. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out and be with some people. Maybe if I can strike up some conversations, and they get to know you to the point where once I accepted the job, I had like 4 or 5 people text me and be like, that's why you were here all week, was because you were just trying to escape everything that's going on. And that's the kind of small, awesome little town that it can be. But you're absolutely right. It's different for, guys from the East Coast like us. And now you're in Ogden, which is just a stone's throw away from Salt Lake. What's it like out there? I've never been out that way.
Yeah, no, I think they're so different when you compare the two, right? And again, like I'm definitely not bashing Austin. It's just different,
It's
right? You say
small.
that there's just it's so small. It's so small, and for us being from where we're from, it's just a huge adjustment.
It is.
That was probably more culture shock than the hockey. So but as far to to relate that to now, like it's just as far as what we've experienced in our life, where we have lived, it's so much more like a homey feeling in that sense, and there's people that grow up with that small town, and that's a homey feeling. I just never had that with a small town. I've been in outskirts, just same with you, of Philadelphia and everywhere over there for my entire life. There's people everywhere. You can't go anywhere without running into people, and then you go to Austin, Minnesota, and everyone knows you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So right, different dynamic for sure. But you look at Ogden, it's 30 minutes from Salt Lake. There's town after town after town after town. There's no emptiness anywhere there as far as going from Salt Lake to Ogden, or Ogden to Salt Lake, or Salt Lake South, or whatever you may do. There's continuous, just high populace every town you go to. So it just feels a little bit more like that East Coast style in that sense. Where it's different is definitely the weather. Weather as far as like the dry air, no humidity. That part's pretty cool because you get the nice heat, but it's dry and it doesn't feel extra, where the humidity just pounds you
You
in
don't have to
Pennsylvania.
tell all of my Charlotte listeners. Let me tell you, we know what that humidity is like when it's 62% humidity and it's already 95 degrees. It's suffocating. It's awful.
Right.
So it's good to see that you guys get a little bit of a break. Someone out there is enjoying the weather.
Yeah. So that part's great. Everything here, all the life is tucked at the bottom of the mountain. So we have a highway system that runs north south. It's I-15. That all the life is off of that. So if you look, you're looking at the highway and you look east and you got the mountains there, and if you look west, you got a lot of desert. There's some mountains out to the west, but it's a lot of desert, and it's two different perspectives depending on where you're turning your head. So for us in Ogden, between the players and the billet families and the people we have with the Mustangs, I think there's so many opportunities to be involved together, involved out in the community, and different areas of life where you can go and entertain yourself on a weekend off. Like there's just so much to do at any point in time, and I really enjoy the nature side of things, being close to a couple lakes and reservoirs, and being able to go out and paddleboard and stuff in the summertime. Get on the water a little bit. That's something that's an interesting dynamic because I love being on the water, but on the East Coast, I'm used to going to the ocean. You know what I mean? Where we're going to the beach and getting ran over by waves, in Wildwood, New Jersey, or we're going out on the boat and jumping the waves, or on the wave runner, jumping the waves out in the ocean. So it's just a little bit of a different water dynamic, but I'm happy to return to water. Obviously there's tons of lakes in Minnesota, but I didn't really get to experience many of them.
Yeah, we're busy.
So yeah. So it's been a cool dynamic. And, like I said, 30-minute drive down to Salt Lake, that city is beautiful. It's so well taken care of. The streets are clean. People are nice. And, there's so many options, for what you want to do on any given night. So I'm really enjoying that sense. And, obviously it brings you back to a little bit more of a homey feeling just from where you and I came from, where there's a little bit more populace, a little bit more going on.
I'm a little disappointed that you just said go down to the beach at Wildwood, New Jersey, and you didn't say go down the shore. That kind of hurt me a little bit inside, and those of you from Philadelphia and the surrounding areas will understand that. You don't go to the beach, you go to the shore. That is just what you do. You go to the Jersey Shore, and you, of all people, you still have that Philly accent. I can hear it when you say home. I can hear it when you say down. I can't even do it. I can hear it. And
Yep.
you said when you go to the beach, that was disappointing. I was really expecting you to say go down the shore, but you didn't. That's okay. That's totally
I'm trying
okay.
I'm trying to be politically correct so everyone understands. Everyone understands that
The
you're
regional
right.
dialects, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. So it is the shore, but people might not understand that if they're not from where we're from. So they should understand the beach. But yes, you're right. If we're on the East Coast, you're going to the shore.
You're going to the
That's where
shore. It's where you proposed to your girlfriend, was at the shore, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. On a nice little private island over there.
Not on Wildwood, not next to Secrets. Paulie D wasn't in the back, or the rest of those guys.
No, that's tough. That is a tough assumption too for myself and a lot of us to deal with, is like the Jersey Shore nonsense. All those people, those clowns, they like that has no association with where we're going to the beach.
Right,
that's
right.
like 2 hours away.
Yep, but
at least.
But that's what people see in their head, and I'm sure it's twice as hard for you being an Italian American as well. I mean, It's just kind of like, okay, Kenny, so what do? Do you GTL all the time, Gym Tan Laundry? I mean,
yeah,
it's true.
Right. That hurts. It hurts because I fall into that, rightfully so. I mean, rightfully so. I'm an Italian guy. Like I get it. It makes sense, but that's just not me.
Right.
But it's so funny because I have a couple buddies that have places down the shore north near where that stuff is, and that's just not the area that we are, a little bit more south. But I understand where it comes from. If you're on the other coast, you're just looking at everyone in the Northeast that it's all the same, right? So
You don't know, right? Like, I'm sure if you start talking about parts of Utah and things, whenever I hear Utah in my mind, it goes to you, but it could be 3 hours southwest of where you are or something. But that's generalizations that people make, whether it's New Jersey,
that's
Utah,
neither here or there, right?
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people think Charlotte is close to Raleigh. I try to tell them it's 3 hours away. We're closer to Columbia, South Carolina than we are to Raleigh. And, it's just a little different. But I want to get back into your coaching and some of the things that you do in Ogden. Obviously, this is a junior team. And the one thing that I know well, and for those of you out there listening, I'll give you a little crash course on it. It's when you work for a junior team, you are going to do multiple things. I mean, at any given time, I was working ticket sales, I was working social media, I was doing media relations. You're wearing 15 different hats. And I imagine that carries through with the coach as well. I mean, you're in charge of not only coaching, but recruiting, scouting. What else are you doing? I mean, what's your day-to-day like so that you can help the Mustangs be as best as they possibly can be come season time?
Well, like you said, you're wearing every hat that's on the shelf, right? So, obviously we're lucky to have the people that we do helping and supporting in this group, in this organization. But at the end of the day, like it does come down to that, like wearing every hat that you possibly can. The only one that, I feel like I don't have to wear every single day would be the billeting and some of the sales stuff, because Tim Smith and Laura Smith are billet coordinators here. Tim actually also took on our full time with sales and marketing. So outside of that, I would say probably everything else, and that's so much, and that's such a general statement, but that's what hockey is at this level. You're recruiting, you're scouting, you're preparing, like in season. Obviously you're continuous on the video with studying teams and games and strategy and players, but at the same time that you're trying to recruit and find the next product for your team, whether that's this year or next year, and then every single day you're with practice planning and different drills and, approaches that we want to give the guys off the ice that'll continue to help benefit their training, hockey specific workouts. Like we have a great trainer that we deal with, but being able to kind of suggest and mold, a certain workout system that will help them off the ice benefit, or nurse an injury or whatever, and then being able to monitor the guys' schooling, and their academics, and being able to get these guys conversations with universities, higher level juniors, whatever it may be. There is so many things, and that's just, bits and pieces of it. You're in the off season, you're managing camps, you're, ordering equipment, making sure that everything's here on time, doing inventory of everything you have in this organization. It never ends. That's not a complaint list. I love it, but it is certainly something that, if you're doing any other job, if you're not coaching ice hockey, I shouldn't say any other job, but a lot of jobs, there's at least a responsibility or a task list that you're held accountable for, that you could understand, like if you're looking at a resume, okay, this person would be able to handle this because the tasks that they have to do are X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Well, the tasks that you're doing in this position are not X, Y, and Z. That's X, Y, and Z, but it's also the rest of the alphabet, and then it's whatever other alphabet you want to make up.
Right.
You got 55, 60 responsibilities instead of the one or the two or the three.
Yeah.
Right. So, like you said, even as a broadcaster, you were doing that. You were wearing multiple hats in Austin, and I'm sure you still continue to do that in some capacity now, and wherever you end up in this hockey game, you will. But like that's something that doesn't go away, I feel like, regardless of your level. But junior hockey definitely puts it in an exponential level, if that makes sense, on how some of those things are ran. Yeah,
and I think it's because it comes down to, in junior hockey, you're going to have smaller front offices. And when you have smaller front offices, you only have so many channels. So when there's a question or a problem or a circumstance, it can only go one of 3 or 4 ways. And it's either going to go to the front office, or it's going to go to you, or, and then that might not be the right person to go to, but it's going to come back around, and you got to handle it, and you just kind of juggle those things. But one thing that I did see last February that I want to talk to you a little bit about, because I want to hear about this experience. You guys acquired from the New Jersey Hitmen a Keith Orlando. I feel like that's got to be related to the head coach, Kenny Orlando, no?
I think I knew him once.
How did that come about? And I mean, obviously, this is your younger brother. What was that like, bringing him into the fold and being his coach and bringing him on? Is he going to be joining you this year? I don't know where you guys are at there. I don't want you to spoil anything if there is an issue, but,
No,
I'd love to hear that, being able to coach your brother.
Yeah. That was such an amazing experience. When you're coaching, even when, I was younger and I was a player, but I would help coach, my dad's team when my dad was coaching Keith, and just be able to help it interact. It's a little different, because he doesn't always want to listen to the big brother or the dad or whatever else in youth hockey. But I think, times move on and, people grow up and they mature. And I think he came into this. The only reason that he did come into this was because he was in a proper headspace. And what I mean by that was, he kind of went through the ringer early on that season. He started in Florida and he ended up asking for a trade and ended up back towards home in New Jersey. Excuse me. And then, so he was home and he was enjoying that experience. He had a great coach there and he had two great coaches with the two teams he was on. And, I think him being close to home, that experience was great for him in other capacities. He was held accountable and he was in a role that, he was expected to help this, the team, he was expected to score. He was expected to be the top guy or one of them. And there was a lot on his shoulders. And I think coming down the stretch, his team got eliminated from playoffs before playoffs happened. And, we were kind of looking at making one or two adjustments right at the deadline. And that put us about a month out of playoffs. So it put us in, a situation where I think we had, I can't remember exact numbers, but it's somewhere between 7 and 10 games left before playoffs. And, this would be an off the, behind the curtain type of conversation that I'm admitting now to you, but, I'm having this with him at that time going, hey, you're eliminated. Your coach is a great guy. He would send you here if you want to come finish here. He understands, that you guys only have 1 or 2 games left, and that season's concluding for you, but there's a chance for you to come here, be on a top-notch team that has a chance to fight for a national championship and a division championship. It extends your career this year. It extends chances for you to be on a championship winning team. And at that time, he was a guy I firmly believe could help our team, that's what we're thinking. And, so we had that open conversation, and just seeing, the maturity for him, like him and I, we have an interesting dynamic. I'm 30 and he's now 20, but, we've always been 10 years apart, but, when we get together, it's just tons of laughs and tons of, just jokes and remarks and everything else. But like sitting there, just having a real conversation with him over the phone going like, this is the kind of coach that I am, Keith. Like, there's no promises, you could be a 100-point scorer and there's literally no promises on our team. You have to earn it. I don't care what your last name says. It doesn't matter. If you come in and you're the best player and you're earning it, then you'll get it. And if you're the bottom guy and you need to keep working and keep developing, that's where you're going to be. It doesn't matter about the name on the back, and I love you as a brother regardless. But I'm also going to love you as a coach, and that might be tough. So I think that dynamic was extremely interesting. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity. So we were able to make it work. So he did come out. So, and, I basically told him before the first week started, like, man, there's regular season games, there's playoff games, there's potentially nationals games. I can't promise you that you'll get in one of them. It's up to you to go earn that. I'm basically saying you can come out here and practice and see how you do. And if you earn it, it's great. And I would support that and I wouldn't hold it against him. And he came out and he earned it. And all he did was listen and all he did was want to be better. And I think it helped him on the defensive side of the puck. Between him and me, we were two players that weren't very we weren't defensive.
Surprise! The guy that Steve was showing me as offensive highlights isn't a defenseman.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So between him and I, we weren't exactly defensive masterminds on the ice as a player. But I think that he came and he showcased right away, I'm going to do whatever it takes. The guys fell in love with him because he has that knack to just be able to build a friendship and make people laugh right away. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to force it. I obviously was harder on him than probably anyone else, just so the guys knew that there was no favoritism whatsoever. It wasn't intentional. It was more of, this is the way that it has to be.
Sure. Yeah.
So they know, and they knew right away. The guys could see it, and there were times where I was super hard on him, but there were times where we leaned on him. Like, we need you. We really need you. And he stepped up and scored some big goals. He played, his first night with us. He scored a goal against our rival, the other team that is always, at the top of the standings with us. And I think right then and there, everyone was like, all right, this kid can play, just being able to see that and be a part of it, and then appreciate that and see that he handled it the right way was amazing. I mean, he earned so much. He got an opportunity in playoffs. He scored 2. We were in an elimination game in a series of 3. We're on a Sunday afternoon game. You win, you move on to the division championship. You lose, you go home. And we won 5-0, and he scored 2 goals. Wow. So he stepped up at big times, and I think he made some probably lifelong friendships out of that 1 month being here. And he got to play with us at nationals, and just a really cool experience. Obviously, that's not a story that I usually get to tell or talk about. But I think that him and the guys probably appreciated how that went, because it was just more of merit-based, no favors.
Right. It could have been really bad. There could have been some kind of nepotism. There could have been, favors that were handed out and things like that. But I got to ask you, did Mom and Dad Orlando, did they fly out? Did they get to see any of these games and enjoy, both their sons, one behind the bench, one on the ice? Was that something they got to witness?
Well, they did get to witness it. They did not get to witness it in playoffs or in Ogden. They got to witness it when we went to nationals. So nationals, wow. You're an East Coast guy, is in Utica, New York. So, right. Obviously that's only 5 hours or so away from where we're from over there. And our parents got to come up. They stayed for the whole weekend. They got to see us play all 3 games at nationals. And, they got to see Keith play and get to see me again. They don't get to see me very much in season. So I'm a huge family type of guy. So that was big for both of us, but they got to see us wear the same logo at the same time. Ultimately that's something that, unless things change in the next year or two and I'm coaching college and he ends up there, or I end up coaching pros and he ends up there, the percentages are very slim that an opportunity like that would ever happen where our paths would cross like this again. So I just appreciated every second of it. My parents got to enjoy that, especially at nationals. That was just an awesome experience.
Did you guys play at the Adirondack Bank where the Utica Comets play?
Yes.
And that was right after they got the brand new lights, because I remember going up there my first year with Charlotte, obviously in the AHL playing against Utica. That place had these incandescent, just bad yellow lights. It was just bad. It was yellow, and then they redid the lights. And I think that was part of the reason, was because y'all were having nationals there, and it was time. But that's a really cool barn, and the weather, I'm sure, wasn't the greatest. When was this? This must have been March, April?
End of March, yeah.
Yeah, it probably wasn't the best. But it's really cool to hear that story. I mean, you hear a lot of father-son coaching, playing scenarios, right? But you don't hear a lot about older brother, younger brother. You usually hear older brother, younger brother playing together, the Sedines or the Stalls or who have you. But you don't really hear a lot about older brother being the coach, younger brother being on the ice. And it's something that's definitely unique.
Yeah, that was, again, I'll never forget that. It was an amazing experience, and I'm super proud of him. He handled it like a true athlete, like a true gentleman. He didn't expect anything. He didn't expect one thing. He just came in and, he just worked for everything. It was awesome, and for us to get to share that, it was amazing.
I was going to say, were you guys his billets too? Was he living with you guys?
No, I mean, obviously I would help him if that situation arose, but, you just billeting in general, you don't want to get coaches involved with billeting. It's messy. But we have really good friends out here. Rick and Miley Schock, they're an unbelievable family, and they opened up their home for him. So it was actually Amanda and I's, best friends out here that opened their house for him. And he was only 5 minutes from the rink. The setup couldn't have got better for him. It just worked out. Yeah.
Well, Kenny, it's been so good catching up with you. I mean, we didn't even get to talk about the time that we lived together for a short period of time in Austin, when I called the fire department because I smelled gas in the house and we were evacuated out of the house. We didn't get the chance to talk about your soap ventures, you and Amanda making soap in your apartment in Austin. I'll never forget that. There was a lot of stuff that we really did not get to talk about, but we scratched the surface. Really, thank you for the time. I mean, it's been too long. I got to get out to Utah. You guys got to come out to Charlotte or something. Like, can we organize something where, the AHL doesn't go out to Utah, but can we organize something where the NCDC, are there any Carolina teams that you guys can fly out and play? Like, we got to make this happen. Obviously, us both being in hockey, our free time is during the summer, and we go back home. We go see family and do stuff like that, but we got to get together. I miss it. I think about that year in Austin probably more than anything else because it was just wacky, man. The trips up to Minneapolis, the Wild game, and everything that followed after that. We're not even going into that. It was an incredible year. I miss it. I want to relive that as much as I possibly can, and I miss you guys. So thank you for the time. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, no, we miss you too, man. It's been great. I know you're doing great things. I'm, obviously super happy to be able to call you and Keegan great buddies, and that experience was awesome. And I think it's really helped all of us in our careers and pushing us in a great direction. So
yeah, 1,000%. Well, thanks again. I'll let you get going. I know you got coaching. Your season's coming up real quick, so you got to put a team out there on the ice. And good luck again this year. You just got to go a little bit further than you did last year. And so far, that's been your trajectory. You've been trending up. So there's only one way to go but up. Thanks again, Kenny. I appreciate it.
Thank you, DJ.
That was Ogden Mustangs head coach Kenny Orlando. This has been Chillin' with Chillot. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, check out the other awesome shows, including the David Glenn Show right here on the NC Sports Network. I'm play-by-play broadcaster TJ Chillot. We'll see you all next week for another episode of Chillin' with Chillot.